Welcome to Good Burger Reviews. My name is John, and I'm here to review a brand new 2025 movie, and that is Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Naughty. Santa is always watching. Naughty boys get punished.
It was released in December of 2025. It is directed by Mike P. Nelson. It stars Rohan Campbell, Ruby Modine, and Mark Aitchison. A child witnesses his parents' murder by a man in a Santa suit. Years later, as an adult, he finds himself in a Santa costume himself and embarks on a violent quest for retribution against those responsible for the traumatic event from his childhood. Okay, well, I'm just back from the theater from Silent Night, Deadly Night, and all I can say about this one is, just like the main character in this movie, I feel like the movie is having an identity crisis. And what do I mean by identity crisis? Well, I guess the question is this movie a slasher? Is it a movie about a serial killer? Or is it just a straight out revenge movie? And after thinking about it, I'd have to say it primarily is the combination of all three of those. But which one does it lean into the most? Because I was kind of expecting this to be mainly a slasher, and when I realized there was something a little bit deeper than a slasher going on, I started to realize where we were going with this movie.
Don't forget who you are and what you do.
With all that being said, this movie is the blend of multiple movies that I've seen, some fairly old and others just current. And when I think about what movies are blending in this one, I think, of course, of the original Silent Night, Deadly Night from 1984. After all, this is a remake. But I also think of Halloween Ends, Henry, the Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is a serial killer movie from the 1980s, and a little bit of Saw meets A Violent Nature. So let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly, break down this movie, share a few spoilers, and then get into the rating. And when I think of the positives of this movie, the first thing that comes to mind is Rohan Campbell, who plays Billy, the Santa Claus serial killer who's out for revenge after witnessing the murder of his parents as a young child. Now, this was giving me also a little bit of Halloween Ends vibe, so obviously in Halloween Ends, Rohan Campbell is come face to face with Michael Myers where he's feeling drawn and pulled to be a serial killer. Well, oddly enough, the same thing happens in this movie where Rohan Campbell's character is face to face with a Santa Claus slasher who then in time gets drawn by him, pulled in by him to become a slasher as well. Another thing that I thought was in the positives for this one was the music. Not only the score, but the blend of scary music with Christmas tunes to really give a haunting and Christmassy vibe as this serial killer starts slashing away at Christmas time. Another thing I can put in the positive is Ruby Modine as Rohan Campbell's love interest. She plays a very intense character who's funny, scary, relatable, and just downright fun to watch as she plays the wacky girlfriend. Another thing that I'll put in the positives is this is definitely an original story. Now, that's odd for me to say since this is a remake. When a movie starts to unravel, you really think it's going to be a play-for-play, shot-for-shot remake of the original, because in the beginning of the original, you have the young boy that witnesses his parents being killed, also dealing with, he has a creepy moment with his grandfather right before as well, which that happens in this movie. But then right after that, the movie goes in a completely different direction and does not follow suit as to what the original 1984 movie did. And that's going to bring me to my mix, because I felt like this movie was advertised as a Santa Claus slasher, as what 1984 Silent Night Deadly Night primarily was. But the more and more I started watching this movie, I started getting disappointed in it as a slasher, because it seemed to have more things going on with it. And until we get this exposition dump in the second going into the third act, we really don't know what the heck is going on with why our main antagonist, or is he really our protagonist? Because I've said this before in movies where we start to empathize and sympathize with the antagonist in the movie, with the serial killer in the movie. And that's when I started to realize that this was becoming less of a slasher and more of a psychological thriller, focusing on the serial killer aspect, like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, where you have this movie from the middle 1980s getting into what kind of makes a serial killer, how the serial killer operates, and why.
At Christmas time, I can see evil. I slipped from Billy into something else.
So you're crazy. I'm gonna figure out what's going on in there.
Yeah, no idea.
But because they took so long to kind of explain that, I was having a disappointed feeling, because I felt like they were, getting too much into what was going on with Rohan Campbell. And just like I said, this is kind of like in a violent nature, where in that movie you're with the serial killer the whole time. Now that was a very gimmicky movie where it was like you're literally with the serial killer the whole time. This movie isn't exactly like that, but because Rohan Campbell is the star, we are really in his point of view. And with that, when the kills were happening, there was no tension in the beginning, because I felt like we're just following Rohan Campbell from his meeting his girlfriend, meeting his girlfriend's father, getting a job at the store, to all of a sudden, he's killing people. Now, there's a big difference of what was going on in this movie than what was going on in the original Silent Night Deadly Night. And that is, he is communicating with Charlie, who is the Santa Claus that killed his parents. And I was very mixed about this, because at first it seemed like, is this a Michael Myers and Corey Cunningham type of relationship? Or was it leaning more into like a mentor, or he was being, like, at one point in the exposition scene, he says he felt like it was his dad, or someone that taught him and cared about him. So there was more of a relationship going on between Charlie and Billy.
The person who did this, he was dressed like Santa.
Bad people need to be punished.
Billy?
But once I realized that Charlie was like the spirit of Santa, and Santa, the Santa who knows when you're good and knows when you're bad, especially knows when you're bad, and that's when we realized that that's kind of the motivation of what's going on with Billy, Rohan Campbell's character's name. And it seems as though when Charlie is talking to him, he's kind of guiding him and leading him after very bad people for him to kill. And it also is explained to us that he only kills during Advent, which was another thing that led me to be mixed, because Advent is like almost 30 days long. And this movie only takes place over a 6-day period. It starts like on December 20th and then ends at Christmas. So it's a 5-day period, really. Now, they did do a decent job of kind of blending the Christmas themes there, because he's kind of killing somebody and then marking it on he's marking with their blood on the Advent calendar, which was a neat little Christmas twist to this movie. Which then leads me into some predictability, because I thought the girlfriend was kind of a little wacky. She seemed to be obsessed with serial killers. She said she was like totally into true crime, and she has like this psychological issue that she's having where she has these anger outbursts and so forth. And I think, oh, I think she's going to be a serial killer too, and maybe she's going to be Mrs. Claus. Now, I'll get into more of what actually happens in spoilers with that thought, because I was just guessing that at the beginning of the movie before we realize how it unravels. So before I get into spoilers, let's talk about some negatives. And I think the biggest negative for me was there was a lot of suspension of disbelief, especially in this one scene where he busts in on this like party, and the party is like this private party at a club, and it's like an hour away, or it's far away from where he's at in the town of, by the way, he's in this town called Hackett, which was a funny name. But he's been led to kill this one lady who basically is having like this like white supremacist swastika party, and it seemed to me like it was like, where are we going with this? Because this is before we realize what type of serial killer Billy is really becoming. And in this scene, it gets way out of hand. He, you know, the way the people were, it seemed like he was set 50-1. And I thought, there's no way he's going to be able to kill all these people. And why is he killing all of them? I thought he was really only supposed to target one. And when it all breaks loose, he starts, you know, slaying them with the axe. And I think some of these people could have gotten him and gotten him down before they all were dead. But the girl that he was targeting breaks out this gun and starts shooting into the crowd. And I thought, what was the point of that? That didn't even make any sense, because technically she was shooting at her own friends. So, I mean, with part of the negatives is, I said this movie was having an identity crisis. So it's like, I really thought it was going to be a slasher, and it really ends up focusing more on the serial killer aspect of it. Like what's going on in his mind, what's drawing him to it, how he kind of operates. And it is also a revenge flick as well, because in everything, he's getting revenge at Christmas time because he watched Santa kill his parents. But it's also like a jigsaw type of thing, because he's getting revenge on people not only that did him wrong, but also people who are just wrong, like just bad people, naughty people. And he's not as smart as Jigsaw. He's just kind of like a killing machine being led by the ghost of Charlie. Because it seems as though he does have a heart. He has a heart for his girlfriend. You know, even his girlfriend's dad. There's some little kids in the movie that he seems to be fond of. And it's like, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? And we just talked about this in movies like Megan and Predator, where we have characters who are known for being the bad guy who go on good. Now, I wouldn't say this is the same exact thing, because he's not gone good. He's still kind of bad. He just seems to have a heart for certain things. It's really like he's become an anti-hero, or maybe even like a vigilante. So let's break this down in a spoiler fashion. Like I said, it opened up where it's a flashback, he's witnessing his parents being murdered, and then we flash forward to him as an adult, and he's moving into this town of Hackett, and he meets Ruby Modine's character, Pam, or Pammy, and she runs this little like store which is similar to the original, and he applies with the dad to get a job at the store, and he gets a job at the store, and he immediately hits it off with Pammy, and then it already is like they become a love interest, and then they go to this hockey game with her nephew, and he's being told by Charlie, the ghost of the original Santa, to kill this one lady at the hockey game. But before he goes to kill her, Pam has an altercation on the ice because she sees that her nephew is being tormented by these kids, and she goes out and starts hitting them with hockey sticks, and it gets really brutal. And that's when I started to guess that, yeah, she's going to be a killer too, because she's already off the charts with how she's acting. Pam is also being kind of stalked by her ex-boyfriend Max, who's a local cop. And there's also other kids that are disappearing in the town. And I instantly thought that Rohan Campbell's character Billy should be getting blamed a lot more for what's going on. Plus there's a scene where he shows up with a black eye, and it should be obvious to him that he was involved in some sort of scuffle, and he tells them some story about a box falling on his face at the store, and they just kind of buy it. So there's some more of that suspension of disbelief, or either that or just, as in typical horror movies, the cops are dumb.
All clear. Nothing above, nothing below.
What about Max?
Or is one of the cops behind some of the stuff that's going on. Against Charlie's wishes, Billy tells Pam about his secret past and how he's been being a serial killer at Christmas time because of everything. And she's okay with it. And then they go out to conquest one of the people that he's got to kill, because her dad was killed by someone, and now they both want to get revenge. And they come to find out that someone's been kidnapping the small children and stuffing them in the basement of this one house, and they come across the house where all these kids are like in like a ball pit. It's like the whole basement's like this giant ball pit, and they find the kids, but then the killer's down there. Now I think there's two killers. Now it gets a little foggy with this part because like there's this guy in a Santa mask, like a generic, looks like the Strangers Chapter 1 type of mask, but it's a Santa mask. They kill him. The ex-boyfriend is on the premises as well, and he shoots Max and kills him. And then the secret power that Charlie and Billy had now transfers from Billy to Pam, which it ends like this, where it's going to be possibly a sequel, Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, but you have, I would assume, Mrs. Claus as the killer. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen the original Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise. I don't think Mrs. Claus was the killer in part 2. So this is definitely going down its own route. So we're going to get to business on this one, because I feel like at the end of the day, I kind of got a little tricked. I thought it was a slasher, and it turns out to be more of a portrait of a serial killer movie. The question is, did I like it? And once I started realizing where we were going with Billy as the main character, that this really was more of a portrait of a serial killer and a revenge story and less of a slasher, then I started realizing, okay, I really ended up liking this one. And I think it's just because of the originality. The script flips on you, where you think it's going one way and it ends up being another way. So I'm going to end up giving Silent Night, Deadly Night a good burger. And at the end of the day, I think they did do a decent job of blending that slasher meets serial killer meets psychological thriller all into one. And I'm curious to see what they do with a sequel, since the movie definitely sequel baits, I can assume that they will be releasing a Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 starring Mrs. Claus. Meanwhile, don't forget to stay scared of those Santa Claus serial killers that are out for revenge.